was interesting, I guess you could say. I think the right word would be an absolute bore fest. So obviously this is my race review right from the end of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. And you know what? I'm not even going to talk about the actual race to start off with, because I do need to give the benefit of the doubt to this race that we did have the best qualifying session of the calendar year so far in 2025 on Saturday. So you know what? It did give us a brilliant session that led to some great results on the Sunday that I'll actually get into in a second. However, the actual race itself, yeah, that was an absolute snooze fest. Unless you were a Max Verstappen fan, a Carlos Sainz fan, or a Mercedes fan, realistically, everyone else was falling asleep. It really just was one of those races where it was just train after train. Now, our first actual thing that we need to talk about was the start. First of all, Oscar Piastri jumping the start. What is going on? That is a very uncommon mistake from Oscar Piastri. But not only did he jump the start, he stopped. That meant Fernando Alonso judged his start of him, so they both jumped the start, and then from the back of the grid locked up and crashed. Instantly everyone's like, boom, championship's back on. This is absolutely incredible. What can Lando Norris do? Well, I can tell you, because nothing happened in the race of importance with Lando Norris. He only finished 7th in a race where realistically he could have got, I think he could have maximum got 5th. He's lost another 4 points to Piastri, where he could have made the gap 21 points. It's now 25 points, so it's still going in the right direction for him. It's now back under that one race win if Piastri has another DNF and that race win happens. But wow, oh wow, Lando Norris, you need to start taking your chances when Piastri does this. Again, Piastri also crashed in qualifying and he didn't take advantage of that, and that's why he had to deal with all of these cars around him, because he didn't qualify where he was supposed to be. Now, Oscar Piastri as well, what needs to be said is that ends his consistent running of finishing races in F1. So now he ends with, I believe it's 44, 45 races completed. So he did get up into 2nd place, but he's not going to take that top spot away anytime soon now. It's going to be another 2-3 seasons if he wants to go again, but I'd be surprised if he got that far again. And then after the first lap, that was about it. Genuinely, that was it. I can tell you right now, Max Verstappen went on to win the race. Absolutely dominated. For me, a little bit biased because I final fixed in F1 Fantasy and I wanted him to get that extra 10 points for driver of the day. My driver of the day, he did nothing wrong. He led every single lap of the race, got the fastest lap. It completely destroyed everyone else. No one was even close. Russell was like 14, 15 seconds behind at the end of the race. There was never any doubt in my mind, once we were halfway through that race, that Verstappen was winning. He had the pace. Then behind him, like I said, George Russell actually had another good race as well. But to be fair, that Mercedes did have good pace. I'm a little bit ashamed with what they did with Antonelli's pit stop strategy. I think if they didn't screw up Antonelli's strategy, he might have got 3rd place ahead of Carlos Sainz. However, it works out perfectly for the man himself, Carlos Sainz. After such a hard season at Williams so far, only getting 16 points. In one race, he's basically doubled it, and now it looks a lot more... It looks a lot better for him now that it's 70 points to Albon and Carlos Sainz 31 points. And it puts Williams into that 100 points bracket. I'm so proud of Williams for doing this. It's the right trajectory. Hopefully they can continue this heading into 2026. I really hope they do. But that's 100 points. Now we just need Albon to get 100 points and Sainz to get 50 points as well. Oh, it's going to get exciting. Now, another big talking point that happened during this race was Albon versus Colapinto. Again, Albon, why did you have to do that? Because Colapinto was looking half decent for some F1 Fantasy points. Considering I dropped Lawson to Colapinto. Don't ask me, stupid mistake. However, I can still afford to go Bortoletto, Colapinto to Sainz Lawson next race weekend. So I'm living life. However, on the actual race, Colapinto closed the door a bit on Alex Albon, but Albon, I don't know what he was trying. It was a bit audacious. He was a bit upset. You know, the race hadn't been going his way. He pit early again to try and make some moves. He had seen his teammate obviously in the podium positions. He knew what that Williams could do this race weekend. Considering he did start at the back, it was a good like improvement from him, but with this 10-second penalty, it just didn't really work out for him. It was a race to forget for Albon, and it is a shame because I do think with everything crazy happening at the front, with the likes of Lawson being there as well, Albon could have been involved with all of this, which was a shame to see. And again, I do think it was a bit sad for Colapinto because Colapinto actually came last in 19th out of the runners who ended, but it really didn't do him justice because he was another one who had a massive train behind him with him and then Lance Stroll, and he was keeping people at bay. It was a really good defensive job from Colapinto. He went into the pits, Albon tried to get past him, and that's when that obviously incident happened, and from there on he was just too far behind everyone else. It was a shame to see, but I do think, considering Colapinto's fighting for his seat, it's a big turning point for him because this could have been a half decent result, getting like 12th, 13th, 14th around that end, and it's ended up being 19th. I mean, to be fair, at least Gasly was only 18th, so Alpine's just being Alpine. But at the end of the day, a weekend to forget finally for the Alpines. And then actually another weekend to forget was Aston Martin's. Fernando Alonso getting that penalty didn't work out for him in the end. And also Lance Stroll was the last of the proper finishers. Alpines are Alpines. They were a lap behind. And then quickly before I talk about some big issues with the race, we have to talk about Liam Lawson. Again, what a defensive masterclass from him. Yes, it was hard to overtake, but Liam Lawson managed to keep Yuki Tsunoda on fresh mediums behind him and Lando Norris, who looked absolutely rapid. He kept both of them behind, and incredible racing from him to get 5th there. 10 points for Liam Lawson. It drastically helps him in the standings, again trying to fight for his seat in F1. So it's actually a really good weekend for everyone fighting for that, because Kimi Antonelli got 4th, Lawson got 5th, two drivers who are under quite a bit of scrutiny right now. So I'm very happy to have seen them done well. However, I do have to talk about just the overtaking on this race. Now, I came into this thinking it wouldn't be as bad as Monza. Baku, it's never the easiest to overtake on. But wow, this was just a complete different level of trains. Honestly, it was just impossible to overtake. Especially, you basically had the Lawson train and the Colapinto train. And it was just horrible to watch, wasn't it? I just couldn't believe what I was watching. I was really excited after that qualifying session for such a fun race. It just didn't really come to pass. So hey, on a weekend as a whole for the ranking, I would probably give this like a 7, a 7.5, because that qualifying session genuinely was like a 10 out of 10 absolute scenes. However, if we're going off the rankings I'm going to give to the race, sadly, it's my first one below a 5, but I think a little bit biased towards Spa because I was there. I believe I gave that a 5 or a 6. I think that was a 4. That was a really, really bad race. Literally, the only reason it doesn't get like a 2 or a 3 is because I'm really happy to see someone like Max Verstappen get another win. The championship back on. No, of course not. But happy to see someone other than the McLarens get a win. It's good for F1 as a sport in general. And then also seeing Carlos Sainz. I love Carlos Sainz, especially from his McLaren days. So I'm really happy to see him perform well in Williams. For normal F1, F1 Fantasy, he could have retired and it would have been brilliant. However, you know, I can't be too greedy. I got my final fix used on Verstappen, so that worked out perfectly. That was an 100-odd point swing for me on Oscar Piastri to Max Verstappen. Incredible. But that about wraps it up, everyone. Comment down below, what did you think of this race? Did you think it was as boring as I'm saying, as a 4? Or am I being a little bit too harsh? Is it more of like a 5 or a 6 out of 10? Is Lando Norris gonna be able to try to catch up to Oscar Piastri? Because it seems like every single time Lando gets a chance to catch up to Piastri, it just doesn't end up happening. Can Max Verstappen go on and win in Singapore? I don't think so. Red Bull's never really been too brilliant at Singapore. I think it will be a McLaren track again. However, comment down below all of your feelings about this race. I'd love to hear all of your thoughts on it. But thank you all so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of your weekend for however much longer you have of it. And I'll see you all very soon. Take care, everyone.